Good afternoon, everybody, to this afternoon session of our Global Textiles and Clothing webinar. I think we had good sessions this morning on our GTEX program, on some views from Asia, and also something on that looks into global value chains and fairness. Now this afternoon, we will look into some good practices in the garment industry, but not necessarily only with regard to COVID-19. And then we'll have the outlook with regard to the markets. So we'll have some look into the EU market by Euromonitor, and we have a look into the US market by the US Fashion Industry Association. So without further ado, let us now look into the first session of this afternoon. This looks into global good practices along the apparel value chain. This actually is part of a guide that will hopefully come out early next year that should give some guidance to companies on what are good practices all along the value chain, no? Not only on the factory floor, but also with regard to sourcing, product development, marketing, and what have you. And it's our pleasure that we have been working on this guide together with Dr. Rajesh Bheda, who has also been working his entire life in the industry. He is right now the managing director of his own Rajesh Bheda Consultancy company, where he does help companies to improve productivity, efficiency. He's also a researcher and educator in the industry. And where I met him first was when he still was an educator, because he was at a university, at the famous Indian university, the National Institute of Fashion Technology, where he was one of the leading professors there before he became independent. So it's great pleasure to have you on board, have you with us, Rajesh, and we are looking forward to listen to some good practices you identified.
Thank you, Matthias. Can you all hear me well?
Yes, we can.
So really, good afternoon, good evening to people, depending on where they are. It's great to be on ITC platform. So thank you, Matthias, and our colleagues at ITC. I'm also happy to meet and see our colleagues from Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, from Madagascar, from Jordan, associated with the GTEX MENATEX program. So pleasantries to all of you. Also, thank you all the participants for joining. So as Matthias said, that we will talk about some of the good practices across the value chain. And I'll just start my presentation. Feel free to put your questions, and we will try to answer them as the session goes or at the end of the session. I will try to keep some time for live chat or live discussion at the end of the session as such. So as we have heard from the previous speakers, and we all know, the COVID has really played havoc everywhere, and our industry is no exception to that. And we also heard about some of the numbers that were given by our experts from our panelists from China, from Bangladesh, and so on. India, again, has not been an exception to this. And after the pandemic struck, our company carried out a quick research to find out what kind of impact it has had on our industry. And the response suggested that about 3 billion worth of orders were either canceled, were put on hold. And it continues to be a challenging time, as it is the case in most of the industry. The study was carried by various international publications. We also talked about what the industry can do around this time. What we also see, and some of these issues were talked about earlier, that it may hamper the circularity drive or sustainability agenda. So there are two ways of looking at it. It may slow down the resources being put there, but other counterpoint is that circularity becomes important, because if you make investment into that, then you are likely to attract attention of your customer. So there are two kind of impacts one could probably see. What also we are concerned about now is the second wave and how it is likely to affect the exports. And again, the data showed by Asif from Bangladesh also showed us some impact of the second wave on the businesses as such. In that background, when we look at the McKinsey State of Fashion report 2021, it gives a somber outlook. Majority of the people, sourcing executives, are saying that the business would be static or will be down even in the year 2021. So that makes things challenging, and one has to factor those in to be able to find solutions for our strategies for the next year. What it says that one of the biggest challenges, of course, the COVID-19 crisis, and the biggest opportunity being talked about is digital. And again, it was touched upon in the morning. And that is an area where many companies have done some remarkable job. We will see some of that. And that is an area where a lot needs to be done in time to come, because physical proximity is still challenging. Moving further, when we look at the performance of various countries in garment industry and performance of various companies in the garment industry, we realize that the performance varies a lot. And this comes from my book, where we're trying to say that on the same track, you have an Olympian running, you have a national champion running, and you have an aspiring athlete also running. That kind of a variation we see from company to company when we travel across globally. Say it be productivity performance, say it be quality performance, it can be speed to market performance. The performance varies a lot. And which means there is a lot to learn within the same ecosystem. Now, some of the challenges are known to everybody, so I'm not going to focus too much on them, but especially the SMEs, as ITC tries to help the SMEs build their sort of competitiveness and grow up in the value chain. The SMEs lack resources and access to information, access to material, and so on and so forth. As a result, there's limited access to best practices as well. With COVID, what has happened is there's a great amount of uncertainty has come in, so the businesses have to be much more flexible. They got to be ready with doing smaller quantities and shorter lead time, much shorter than earlier. And there's also health concern about the workforce. How do we run the factories while adhering to all the extra requirements that come in from the regulatory authorities, or for that matter, as a business owner, you would like to protect your people and you'd like to protect your organization. So you got to be really, really careful. So those are additional things, pressures which are there on the organization. Now, how has certain countries done things differently? How do certain companies perform much superior compared to others? And to answer that question, we go to a principle that we use while working with various countries, various companies, that there must be a better way. So you cannot afford to say that I found the answer and there's no more progress beyond this. So as long as everybody in the organization is looking for better ways and is trying to improve things, things can improve. And in that background, there is a need to share best practices. We can learn from each other, because I may be good at A, you may be good at B. If we share, both of us can be good at A and B, and both of us can go to the next level. What you see in this slide is a slogan being written in various languages, including Kyrgyz and Russian, where we have done work in past. Soon we will have an Arabic version also coming in there. So moving further, when we look at the good practices publication, as Matthias said, we are working on. So we have identified good practices at an enterprise level, what a company can apply to its own organization, or at an industry association level, or supporting institutions like vocational training institutions or academic institutions. So we're covering all of them in this. And this task is being carried out by our organization, responsibility given by ITC. Thank you for that. So moving forward, just to quickly say, what are we covering in these good practices? And I will share some examples later on. So we're saying, what is a good practice? What are the preconditions? If you're to implement this, what must be there in the organization? If those preconditions are not there, it will be difficult for you to get the best benefit from this good practice. How to implement? What are the key steps? What can be the benefit? Because ultimately, in anything, when you want to do something new, something more, you're looking at what kind of benefits would be there and what is the ROI. To that, to the investment that I make, what kind of results could be there. And then we have specific case studies. So these are, the publication is not limited to good practices, but it has got supporting case studies so that we are able to see that XYZ organization implemented this good practice, and this is how they benefited. So it will really help the enterprises, the associations to get clear, clear examples and get inspiration from various other existing practices and implementers. We have contributions from Bangladesh, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Kyrgyzstan, Ethiopia, USA, India, Jordan. So some of these are our existing MENATEX, GTEX program countries. So it's a global kind of a publication. Because of the COVID, there has been limitations in terms of getting access to information. Sometimes speed has been less, but as Matthias said, early next year, we should be ready with the publication.
Dr. Bheda, excuse me.
Yeah.
May you please just slow down a bit because, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So when we look at this smiley curve, which is used by ITC to show how the manufacturers need to value add more services so that you become more valuable supplier to your customers. And this was also touched upon by David, because he said that being a subcontractor is a slow death because your margins are very, very low and there's an unpredictability of business. But when you go from a subcontractor to a manufacturer and you would like to give ready products to your customer, you must be able to have capabilities of purchasing, sourcing of raw material. Next, you must be able to do design development, original design development. You should be able to do R&D, understand the customer's requirements or market requirements. And similarly, you should be able to have, you must have abilities of distribution, marketing, and providing variety of services to customers. In today's date, the retailers are really wanting to focus on retail, and they are looking for suppliers who can take care of rest everything else. So if you can, and there are suppliers who are doing now vendor managed inventory, which means in my customer's country, I have ability of distribution. So that retailer focuses on acquiring the customers, generating business, and up to distribution is taken care by the supplier. And as we develop this capability, our value addition grows, and as a result, the profitability of the business also grows. So that is how all these areas are covered in this publication, and that is how a company progresses in its service offerings and get rewarded by the customers. Moving further, so this slide gives an overview of the kind of good practices and the kind of domains that we intend to cover. And so we are looking at about 25 odd good practices across domains like production and industrial engineering, like design, merchandising, e-commerce, social responsibility, safety and use of technology, institutional strengthening. We're looking at the associations and the institutions. We're looking at software issues like gender balance, women's empowerment, because this industry, again, provides employment to large number of women and who really help their families come out of poverty. So how do we look at those issues? How do we look at the issues associated with quality and how companies sort of develop themselves in this area? And also looking at COVID, how certain companies, certain countries have responded to COVID in an innovative manner, or how they have made use of this crisis as an opportunity to come out with an innovative business model as such. So there are quite a few areas which are there in front of your screen. I will not get into details of each of these, but it gives you an idea about the variety of subjects we are covering. For quick response, we're looking at SMED, that is sort of single minute exchange of dies, or what we call QCO, quick changeover. We're looking at creating Kaizen culture, looking at design and product development, and variety of other areas. But instead of spending time on this, we'll get into some examples now. And based on that, then we can have interaction. My interpretation colleagues, is the speed okay now?
Okay. I think it's okay. Thank you, Dr. Bheda.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So moving forward, one good practice that we would share with you is called zero defect operator. Now in the automotive industry, the concept of zero defect has been there for a long time. You're aiming at zero defect, or you're looking at concepts like Six Sigma, where the defect is virtually nil. But in a labor-intensive industry, it's questionable. Many people feel that certain amount of defects will come. So this is a practice that was introduced in almost 200 plus factories by us. And here what you're doing is you're training your workforce, you're strengthening the system and empowering them to declare their product as defect-free. Of course, by making them defect-free, but you empower them and take away the inspection as an additional activity. For this, we must have a committed management to be able to apply these kind of radical practices. And there must be ability of data capturing, reviewing, and rewarding people. Unless that kind of environment is not there, we will not be able to implement this kind of concepts as such. And the good practice provides a complete flowchart in terms of how you identify people, how do you train them, how do you create excitement amongst themselves, and then how do you support them to reach zero defect operator status. It's not only the operator's responsibility, but it's also management that plays the supporting role, gives the environment so that quality becomes like is assured. And then how do you recognize them? That is also very important. Unless people feel that they are recognized for the special ability, special achievement, it will not sustain. And you see here, this is the 7-0 form, which is used for auditing operators' output. No 100% inspection is done. It's visually communicated, so anybody can see the status of operator. Operator herself knows what is the status, and once she qualifies, she gets a social recognition, a badge, she gets a photograph on the wall, and she also may get monetary rewards or rewards in kind. So all this really makes people believe that zero defect is possible. And then you try to get as many people at that level so that quality is embedded. Now that's the good practice. Any organization which is interested can implement it. So to support this, we are sharing a case study from a company in Bangladesh. And this company produces casual wear for kids and has got about 1,600 employees. It has grown now from that time and serviced mainly the European customers within that UK departmental stores. When they started the program, the data capturing was done, the baselines were understood, and implementation of zero defect program was part of a larger quality and productivity improvement program. So it wasn't a standalone activity, it was done as a part of a larger program. But it involved capturing data, analyzing data, and empowering people to actually produce right first time. What was also important is that starting from the CEO of the organization, the director of the organization, everybody took interest and created communication, which created a sense of pride amongst the workers. And it was shown that it is possible. It is not something which you're looking at a utopian situation. And more workers were supported, helped to reach that level. And they're recognized publicly. That is very, very important. And as a result, people started feeling, I can do it. And once you see 1, 2, 4 workers achieving that performance, the others started following. This resulted into almost 60% decrease in their defect rate. And not only this process, in every process, starting from sampling to cutting, to sewing, to finishing, in all processes, zero defect operators were trained and the defect rate fell. The customers could experience that the quality system of the company has become very, very robust. They could see that, they could feel it. And this company was rewarded by 3 customers. This again goes back to our discussion with David. Mothercare, Tesco, and Marks and Spencer, 3 companies in a period of about 2 years accorded them self-inspection status. That means they can self-certify the quality of their merchandise. That kind of transformation happened, not only through zero defect operator program, but series of additional supporting programs around quality. So that is the case study on zero defect operator. The next case study I want to share with you is about a small industry organization. There's a cluster around the North India here called OGTC, Okla Garment and Textile Cluster. And it's quite a unique cluster, and there are very interesting things about them which can be useful for industry associations in terms of how a small organization can be so effective. So I'm taking liberty of sharing their case study with you. So this has got about 27 member companies, and they represent about 110 factories situated in around about 60 by 60 kilometer areas of around Delhi. And together, these companies employ about 100,000 people, but the cluster association has got only 3 employees, including the Secretary General. The annual sales turnover is about $110 million US, and they're 800 million US dollars, and the volume of garments is indicated here. So what was the need when there are associations already around? What is the need for forming this kind of association? So here the members realize that SMEs find it difficult to really access information. Sometimes their voice is not heard. Their scale is small, and with that they can't really compete globally. So they realize that if they can help each other, together they would be able to prosper. So they said that it's a cluster of minds. These people are friends and they trust each other and they want to grow together because they realize that unless they work together, they will not be able to grow. So they showed from day one interest in best practices, hunger for getting best expertise from across the globe. They said that we will do collective training, we'll access consulting services, we will do collective sourcing, we'll share capacity between the factories. The leadership had a global vision, and they started collaborating with the government, with the training institutions, educational institutes, and the international agencies like GIZ or ITC. Also, we took some of our delegations to meet them and so on. So very open-minded, communicating globally. And they also believed in managing the organization in a frugal way. So cost effectiveness, because they come from business, they understand it very well. Their secretariat rotates between the members. So members volunteer that for 2 years, let the secretariat be in my factory. So there's no cost of rent, no electricity, nothing. Okay, very interesting things. So they have realized that our members must be trained. Their workforce must be trained. So series of training programs across all domains were organized using the best of the trainers. They have a strong commitment to ethical standards. So they promote employment of people with disabilities. They have health camps for their workers. They have spiritual training programs. So all these areas happen on a constant basis. What that has made over a period of about 17, 18 years of their existence, it has become a benchmark organization. People say that, okay, that's how the cluster organization should be run. Their members' business performance is much higher than the average business performance of rest of the people in the industry, because these people are doing business in a different way. They have access to best practices. So now much larger companies are wanting to become members, saying that can we be part of your so-called, in a way, elite group from the thinking point of view. Government recognizes them for developing policy and implementation of government schemes. And they also have a conference, which is a very strong global forum where international speakers come every year. So that they have been able to do and run it consistently for the last 18 years. They have trained 50,000 plus people from within the organization. That means almost every second person employed by any of the company is trained through the organizational efforts, through the clusters efforts. And they've been able to save a lot of money for the members in terms of reducing the delays of shipments, in terms of sort of air freight. They do common sourcing of fabrics. And again, fair amount of savings are done there, because when you have 100 factory worth of companies negotiating rate contracts, you get a very different kind of a price, unless and compared to individual company trying to negotiate a contract. And they also worked on energy efficiency. So 2,000 tons of carbon emissions have been saved. Productivity gains of about 20 to 90% have been experienced by various companies. Quality improvement, also substantial amount of improvement has happened. So the idea is a small organization run by a small secretariat is able to make this kind of impact because they have a clear vision. They run like business, keep the cost down, but add value to their customers, which are their members. But since there's a high amount of trust between them, they're able to grow collectively and improve their business performance. So I hope it gives some ideas and for the other industry associations. We also have the next good practice. This is from a company from Jordan. They're called Classic Fashion, and they are one of the largest apparel producer in the MENA region. And they have a lot of commitment to training. They work very closely with the Educational Institute and the government and so on. And this program is called Friends from Syria. And we understand the social issues around global conflicts and so on. So there's a fair amount of Syrian refugees in Jordan. And there are various programs, international programs trying to see how they can be integrated, how livelihood can be created for them. And Classic Fashion started a training center for the Syrian refugees from Zatri camp. And they were trained on a variety of trades. And this was done in collaboration with the Ministry of Labor and some of the other agencies. And that has made fair amount of difference for the people who wanted to get a job. And at the same time, companies able to get these people because there's also a shortage of workforce in Jordan willing to work, ready to work in the garment industry. So over a period of time, they've been able to train about 500 Syrian refugees from the camp. And the good thing about them is when they provide training, you have an option of, at the end of the program, if you successfully qualify, you have an option of working with Classic, or you have an option of working in any other organization. There's no compulsion that you must work with Classic. And about 400 of these trainees are already working with Classic Fashions. And there are also not only workers, but there are supervisors, technicians, welfare officers coming in from this community. Based on the success, they've added more training centers and are trying to contribute much larger number of trained workforce for the industry in Jordan, because Jordan industry depends a lot on the expatriate workers coming in from various parts of the world. The message I would like to share here is, if we implement the best practices in training, then skills training makes business sense, or investment in skills training makes business sense. The return on investment is quite good, and only your fighter jet is as good as the pilot that flies it. So if you are able to train our people to the highest skills, then the kind of performance you get from the factory is going to be definitely different. Moving further, as Matthias has said, that we will also look at some of the COVID responses, what companies have been able to do. And this is about a company that is or a group that is led by a former academician, a designer, and he looked at the COVID pandemic, and as a result, what kind of needs are there in the market, concerns of safety. How do you know the person you're meeting doesn't have infection? How do you know that the social distancing is managed? How do you go about doing it? Okay. Shall I go slow?
You can continue. Thank you.
Yeah. So various product ideations were done in terms of uniform design for the health workers or frontline workers, for the police force, and also for average user going around town doing his or her business. And that brought out two innovative products. One is called cover, and this is a kind of a suit cover in which you can dry sanitize your garments. That means if you're going from your home to office, going out for meetings, you come back, you can put your garments in the cover.
Hello, we can hear the Russian translation at the same time. Please hold on. Hello.
Yeah.
The Russian is going on at the same time.
Okay. I think it's happening for a few of you.
Okay. Dr. Bheda, please continue. Well, okay. I can hear you on both channels.
Okay. Okay. I hope it doesn't.
Please stop. Thank you.
Okay. Wonderful. So 2 innovative products came out. One was what you see here is a kind of a suit cover. And this innovative product can help you sanitize your garments. So you go out, you go to office, you take out your outer garments, put into that for 5 minutes with the ultraviolet lights. It will sanitize the product and you're happy, you're confident that your garment does not have virus. You come back home also, again, you can sanitize your products. You don't have to really launder them as such. So that kind of addresses the requirement of a frequent traveler, how to sanitize my garments. And other is what you see is a jacket, which has got smart textiles and has got the electronic settings, which will give you an alarm if you get in proximity with a person with infection. It also gives an alarm if you go too closer, if you're not maintaining the social distancing, and so on. And it also has a possibility of sanitizing if your hands and stuff like that. So it's an interesting mix of clothing technology, smart design, and smart electronics. And we were talking about wearable electronics. It's a good combination of all this together. And these products were ideated and developed quite rapidly after the COVID outbreak, and they have caught a lot of international sort of attention. And as a result, a young organization which promotes a lot of craft products from India, with the help of innovative product development, is able to bring these products on an international market. The fabric used here is called Ajrak. Yes. Yeah. This fabric is a unique craft from India called Ajrak, hand block printed. So it's a product which is high tech, but also uses the local cultural crafts. So combines these two things together. The fabric for this jacket is a cement laminated fabric, again, a new technology, and has got tremendous amount of certain protective properties and things like that. So this is about a response of a very small organization for creating valuable product and coming out with an innovative product which has a possibility of reaching across the globe. Moving further, we come to an organization, and this is very interesting. I found this very interesting, called Lefty Production Company. And this was set up a few years ago by an American entrepreneur, lady entrepreneur. And she felt that sourcing small order quantities from Asia was too difficult. It was too time consuming. They wanted to have larger order quantities, and the lead times were high. At the same time, there are concerns about the social standards. So what is the answer? And they set up this production house. And this challenge is really for young designers, smaller retailers, smaller brands, because they don't have economies of scale to be able to go to far off sourcing countries. So she set up this production company, which provides all the services that may be required to a young brand or to a young designer. She doesn't have to have a workshop. As long as she has got ideas and she has got a customer who likes those ideas on her Instagram page or on a social media page and so on, here is a company which can offer all the services to her, for which she can pay as she uses. So she doesn't have to make big investment, because that is a challenge for a small SME to be able to make investment in technology, hiring a place, renting out, hiring a pattern maker, very, very expensive. And as a result, this company is able to offer need-based services and has grown over a period of time, now works with influencers, fashion icons, and also works with departmental stores, offering services and even production in the USA. So your concerns about lead time are taken care of. Even smaller order quantities are possible. And of course, you know that these are produced under much better conditions as such. They also have sustainable fabrics being used there. And that has opened up opportunity for many young graduates and young designers to be able to focus on the creation and the customer than the other things. Why I brought this here was that many of the manufacturing companies in a country, not all the companies are same. Some companies have got some special abilities. And those abilities, they might be able to offer those services to rest of the members. If somebody has got a very good product development department, you can use it for yourself, but you can give product development services to all other members. So this gives an opportunity for certain companies to be able to value add services where everybody might not be able to do. So I thought this is quite an interesting concept or a business model which can be explored by some of the companies from different parts of the world. Some of the other practices which will be there in the publication is a good practice on a green factory from Bangladesh. It is rated to be the most green or greenest factory, knitwear factory in the world. It's a platinum rated factory. We'll cover that. We have a very good case on social dialogue. How do you engage with the workforce and make them partner in the decision-making process from Vietnam? We have another interesting case of a micro factory in COVID response from a company in USA. And they are a social enterprise, and in a very short time, where the others were shedding workers, this company in Utah, USA were recruiting workers. And they were able to produce a large number of PPEs and so on. And it's a good example of a micro factory, quick response, and responding to the needs of the community. At the same time, creating employment. We also have cases on productivity improvement, quick response, also SaaS-based service software models, where the investment of the owning a software can be brought down remarkably, and you can really afford to have state-of-the-art software at a very, very low cost. As a result, you are able to improve your performance significantly. Wow. So if you have to say, what were the common learning across these good practices? Number one, that there is enough improvement potential in every domain. There's enough to learn from each other. And that's where this good practices guidebook would be really useful. And another interesting thing, most of the good practices, the investment payback period is between 3 months to 12 months, which means the return on investment is very, very promising, very high. But the culture flows from top. What made the difference was the commitment of the top management to implement these good practices. So where the company's bosses, owners were very clear that they wanted to implement this good practice and they will not accept any kind of excuses, they were able to implement this. So it showed a mature management. Making financial investment is not a challenge. Many people can afford it, but preparing the organization is a challenge. So these companies, these owners were able to prepare the people and their mind to accept these good practices, which means accepting that there's scope for improvement. And it's also important to find the right guide or mentor who can take you through that change process, because change is a little painful, but you have a lot of gains. So with this, I would conclude the presentation and we'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Rajesh. Really looking forward to publishing this guide very soon, and then we can have more trainings on this. I open the floor for any hands that some people may raise. Jaina, I can't see the hands. Are there any hands raised?
Currently, no. Would anybody like to raise their hand so that I can? Yeah, here we go. We've got Nadia Benama from ITC.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Go
okay.
ahead.
Hi. Thank you so much, Dr. Bheda. That was a brilliant presentation and very inspiring. Since you're working on the global best practices, could you maybe share what would be the key ingredients to build SME resilience within the textile sector?
That's an interesting question and quite a wide question as well. During the period immediately post-pandemic, we brought out quite a few webinars talking about resilience, and business resilience has got various dimensions to them, which means number one, being able to anticipate that something may go wrong because of whatever reasons. So there's some certain event that happen over a period of time, but there can be unexpected event happen. And how would the management respond to such situation in terms of number one, securing your resources, human resource number one, and business assets number two. That's the immediate response. Number two, what is your business continuity planning? That means how would you reorganize your supply chain quickly to be able to respond back? And that's where we see China has been able to do things very, very differently. But as a country, as an ecosystem, it's very different. So that is another part. And third part is how do you prepare your people to be able to take those roles in terms of responding, so that we are able to quickly get together, reassemble, and look at things as such. So it's a complex subject, but many of the companies which have shown resilience are the ones who are able to take decisions very fast. And where, there's a company where in India, a lot of workers went back home, migrant workers went back home. But this company just assured all the workers that please don't go back. We have enough work, or we'll generate enough work. And that company was able to run their regular production in daytime. In the night shift, they were producing the PPEs because social distancing norm was there. And in fact, they were able to grow their business during the crisis time. So the people who are able to respond faster and who have thought about something can go wrong and had the internal processes have been able to do that quite well. But it requires, of course, a lot more detailed discussion as such, but I hope this gives some idea.
Thank you, Dr. Bheda. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any more questions? Please raise your hand. In the meantime, there's one in writing from Ravi. He says, Dr. Bheda, what do you see the impact of Industry 4.0 be in the post-COVID period in these industries, or in the textiles clothing industry? In other words, would digital practices control the operations?
Well, that's the addition that came in from Matthias. So Industry 4 is a very interesting concept, and there are certain solutions which are coming in a big way. So what I see in terms of pre-production, the digitization has picked up very, very well and very, very, very fast. And that has brought down, that has crashed the product development time. And the customers are now actually expecting almost every company to be digitally ready in terms of showing their products, in terms of doing 3D product development and so on. So that area is definitely picking up very well. In terms of managing and analyzing the data, this industry has been kind of lagging behind, and a lot more needs to be done there. As far as the actual manufacturing is concerned, it may take a little longer time. The solutions already exist, but they are right now expensive. But yes, many of the concepts of Industry 4 need to be implemented, and also they can be implemented. They're not very expensive. Many companies have, or many countries have, the engineering capabilities where the local institutions can develop certain solutions at a fraction of the cost than acquiring that solution from international market. So yes, I'm upbeat about it, but it will not control. So it's the human talent and the technology combined would give a unique kind of a strength to organizations, but you cannot discount it off, certainly.
Good. There is one more question in the question and answer box from someone with no name, anonymous. In post-production, how can a manufacturing company improve itself in terms of marketing, which is intangible?
Okay, so what is really, really important, and again, going to what David was saying, is that we need to offer a solution to our customer, then offering a product, which means we really must understand the pain points of our customer. And if we're able to offer a solution, which is our production capability plus ability of servicing the customer at their doorstep, then yes, you would be the chosen one. And the customers will be, actually customers are looking for such companies who do not have any limitations in their mind. They're able to look at a 5-year roadmap of the customer and are able to grow with them, are able to discuss the 5-year roadmap so that we understand your challenges and your roadmap, and here are we with certain solutions can we discuss. And that's what can really give you edge and make you supplier of a choice or a strategic partner. And many large players are looking at strategic partners to grow with. So that's the way forward.
Thanks, Rajesh. Are there any other more questions? Last chance, last order, because then we also move to the next presentation. I will ask you one last question, which I receive always in many presentations. You referred to skills development makes lots of business sense, but we all always hear from companies, but our turnover of staff is so fast. Why should we invest in people that leave us otherwise? Afterwards?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And there's a cryptic answer. They say if you don't want to invest in skills development, then accept ignorance or accept very low performance. That's one. But second part is that the high turnover is a sign of something not being good. And while you invest into skills development, you also take care of those parts, that why the labor turnover is high. And there are some very good effective measures there also. And those have been implemented in hundreds of companies. So you can do side by side, but there will be some amount of turnover that has to be factored into your skills development plan. So assuming you have 5% turnover, that's factored in. And still it makes business sense. Still the ROI is fantastic. So let's not get worried about this. Let's start building people, because we have in Bangladesh alone, in last 3 years, 50,000 workers were trained under a program, and the existing workers were trained, their capacity improved by almost 21% through few days of training. That kind of a power is there as long as we can leverage. So to my mind, enough evidence to say that it makes business sense and very good tangible ROI, including the attrition rate, no problem. You're on mute.
Great. No, I agree, but I think it's good to repeat and hear there's some different voices. And if it comes out in one or two of the best practices as part of the lessons learned, that would be very useful.
Absolutely. Thank you,
so,
Matthias.
Thank you, Rajesh. We're looking really forward to bring this out, this good practice guide as soon as quickly in early 2021, which is around the corner. And so that all of our countries and beneficiaries can also benefit from what you get us together. So thank you very much on this.
You're welcome.